Because like the more I watch him kind of testing this, the more it convinces me how inefficient and bad a weapon a full-on whip sword like this really
And this is against watermen.
Yes.
Shadiversity.
Greetings, I'm Tyrant.
And I'm Shad.
And today we're going to be taking a look at something that I think is an interesting discussion topic, and that would be whip swords.
Whip.
Because there's a lot of different types, I would say,
There are.
especially when we count like fantasy and stuff. And how they're made, I would say, is one of the biggest determining factors on how much lethality they have.
Yes.
But I think there is just like fundamental flaws with the design inherent to what it actually is.
There's fundamental issues with the very concept behind whip swords. Tarath and I, we're on record of having a distinct criticism, dislike of articulated weapons, which means weapons with floppiness baked into their use. This includes flails, nunchucks, whips generally as weapons. Though, interestingly, we have tested the whip, just normal whip.
Yeah, but a whip is like a bit different because you can use it as an actual item and functional, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's more so about like whip weapons, whip type sword weapons. Are they any good? And I think the issue with the entire concept is they're very uncontrollable. On top of that, the ones that we're going to be taking a look at actually have a lot of complexity to them in terms of their mechanical nature. And a lot of the like historical type ones that I would say, especially the ones that we see originating from India, have barely any lethality, especially when it's compared to like armor, right?
Yeah.
Like against armor, they're not going to do anything.
And the interesting contrast with the one that you mentioned, right? So in India, they have made really, really thin, flexible spring steel that gets a bit
sharp,
whippy, right? Yeah. Now, it would be annoying to fight. It could be very painful, very hard to control. I don't consider it really a viable weapon. They exist.
Yeah, like as a viable weapon, what does that really mean? A stick, a rock is a viable weapon. So I think it depends on the context, but when I take it out of the context of like, because usually when I see people using, I believe it's called the urumi, if I'm getting that correct. You know what I mean? Like no shirt, no pants, no nothing, and they're just flying around. Yeah, that would suck getting hit by a piece of sharp steel at that. But the moment you have on like even I would say soft kit.
Oh, yeah.
It's really not going to do much. So, and when you do get hit by it, it's not like a take your head off type thing. It's more like a surface level cut. So that's kind of where I come in at my thoughts on whip swords, generally speaking.
Well, see, even those, with all my criticisms I have of them, I would think they're more viable than more pop culture style whip swords, because to achieve the pop culture style whip swords, either it needs to just be like segmented blades on a cord or rope, and we've seen those tested. We've even tested it out ourselves.
But I think they're more viable simply because they have more mass and weight behind them. Like I wouldn't want to get hit by that.
But then you're just like, why don't you just use a club or something?
I mean, sure, that's the general idea. We have the issue we have with it, but would you rather be hit by a piece of flexible little spring steel or like a solid sharp bit of segmented steel?
I mean, I know which weapon I would want to use that has more viability. I still don't think it means it's a good weapon. But those ones, right, are also another kind of step separated from what some of the whip swords we're going to be looking here. Because one of the big challenges that, and the individual that we're looking at is Nord Artisan, is when you add additional components and moving parts, you are introducing more points of possible failure.
Yeah.
And so that's why like the urumi one, it is still one component essentially on the blade, which means they would last longer. And so now we come to Nord Artisan. Now, I think his channel is brilliant, okay? And he has made some really, really fun stuff. Like you can see, this is the one that I've watched previously. And this one, he's building a poleaxe, right? Criminally underviewed, in my opinion. Like some of his content, I feel deserves so much more love. And sometimes it does get that love, like this one here, where he makes a functional retractable whip sword Mark II, nearly 1 million views. That's the type of views I feel this content deserves, because he's making some really brilliant stuff. Now, as to its functionality as a weapon, that's what we want to talk about here. But this is nowhere near a diss on this guy's content or his creativity or his I love the guy. I love his content. But we do want to talk about the utility of these weapons generally.
Well, I would even say this is kind of... I would say that his whip swords are the best case scenario.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at like the testing, right, we're looking at the best case that this weapon, like the best chance this weapon could have.
And he really did run into a lot of challenges making these things from failure and breaking. Sometimes they just have too small parts and everything like that, and he has to go back to the drawing board. And then even with what he ends up producing, it's functional enough, but I think if this was hit really hard against like something solid, I would question it as to how well it could hold up. So we're jumping right to when he is starting to, test and check out this thing. And one of the things that I love about this whip sword, I think he just picked a great profile and design for the sword itself. It looks really cool, okay?
Very heavy, very choppy, and it wasn't supposed to be very choppy, so have to do better on the next one.
I do appreciate you wearing a gambeson, sir. Top tier.
Let me have a look.
But there are some real interesting challenges with this just concept generally, okay? And one of them, as I think it will show here, is the alignment of the blades. Now, this thing is still sharp.
My list right here. Test if the whip sword can switch quickly to go between slashing and blocking. Short answer, no. Probably not in the way that you meant it. So,
Now, I want to also give props to the, I guess, ingenuity in the design that is developed here. Like, if you haven't seen the build video of this whip sword, go check it out and check out Nord Artisan, all his content, brilliant stuff. Really, really clever, okay? And what I think he is achieving in this like real world test case, attempt is how difficult this concept really is to make functional and work properly. And it even says here, can this kind of block or slash from whip? And it's like, no, not really. There are difficulties.
Well, I think the question is, all right, so we have whip swords to one side. Are they really the best sort of weapon? I say, not really.
And when you say that, you're talking about a sword that can turn into whip and
No, I'm just talking about a whip sword, just in its concept, underlying concept. Then let's talk about a sword, right? Swords are great. We love swords. They're great. All right, now we have a whip sword that can go between whip and sword. Is that a good concept? Not really.
All right, well, if it could work perfectly without failure.
I don't think it could, though.
No.
Just inherently.
I don't think it could either. But if it could, we're in fantasy now, there are some utilities with it that would mess up opponents. Imagine you going down for a strike and someone goes for a block and then you just turn it into whip and it flips over their sword and slashes them in the head. Like, there are utilities you could do with a real interchangeable sword whip sword.
I think the biggest problem I see is the flex on the blade is not going to be like a proper sword, which means a lot of things with like in the bind and, how you, like if I want a half sword with it, I feel like there's just like a lot of stuff that you do with a sword, a lot of techniques that you do with a sword. The moment you don't have the same sort of flex that a real blade has, because there's like lots of little segments and little components holding things together, I think you're going to actually run into a lot of trouble with it.
Yes, but I think the bigger issue is durability.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's made out of multiple components.
Yeah.
And swords, when they hit and hit hard, they go through huge abuse.
Like even the strong and the weak of the blade, right?
Do you know that one of these swords are nearly double the price of the other? Yet in terms of quality, the one that's actually more affordable is a bit better. And so what does that mean about price point, value, what you should expect to get for your dollar when purchasing swords? The current market is completely flipped on its head. And so Taranth and I have a detailed, in-depth discussion on price point. Now, what should you expect for your dollar when buying a sword today? And you get access to this exclusive video for just $1 a month. Now that is value for your money. And not only this video, all the backlog, that is what is actually sustaining us. Ad revenue is basically a non-entity now because YouTube is just killing off, recommendations, but it's our supporters. We're making these videos for you guys, and you can help us out and support us for just $1 through Patreon, Subscribestar, or channel memberships, and then you help ensure us making this content for you going in the future. So thank you everyone who's supporting us. It means the world. And now let's get back to the main video.
Or even if you handle it the weak of the blade, so up near the tip, somebody gets a solid blow right between the little gaps of the segments. Is that enough to damaged the mechanism because it's gotten in between the little gap. Like there's so many little things there where I'm like, I just don't know.
In reality, I don't think you could ever really make this work. And Nord Artisan has made the best attempt I think you could really achieve. And he's showing that it's not really viable, but it's heck of a lot of fun. And what a really clever thing to try and engineer. But if you were to enter in the realms of fantasy and just pretend it could function perfectly as a sword in its sword state and could, go into its whip state and then pull it back, in one kind of thing, if it could work flawlessly and functionally, it would have advantages. It would have some actual real applicable combative techniques that could give you further utility and advantage than a sword by itself.
I think it really depends on how far it can whip and the profile of the blade.
Let's just say even if it could only extend 50% of its current blade length, then that's still significant.
Sure. I think there's still underlying issues with the concept of like a whip type sword and how much power it actually can do with stuff. But generally speaking, I think you could probably find some uses for it. Yeah.
The main use would be against unarmored targets. As soon as you go against an armored target, the force you can put behind an articulated whip-like blade like that, it's not going to get through armor and everything. But if you're fighting an unarmed person, right, imagine you go for a slash and your opponent thinks they have the distance measure correct with the sword, and you go for a slash and they think they're out of measure, and then you just trigger it to extend into the whip. That would you could mess up people's distance measure so much.
Yes, I just don't know how much power it would actually have, like stopping power, even if you did that.
Well, let's watch some of the tests.
So slashing and blocking, as long as it stays in sword mode with the whip locking pin in here, yes, I can quickly move between slashing and blocking. But once we pull the pin and then go into whip mode, the pin and then go into whip mode.
So that's like what, 50% more or 30%?
Something like that, yeah.
A big flaw with this design. So right here, you can see these slots that I've cut. The Dyneema rope really likes to slip out of here and then sit like this. And if I retract it like this, it jams up because it gets wedged between.
Okay, now he's saying that's a flaw with his current design because that can be fixed. And he has a later attempt.
The blade piece and the segment links. In order for this thing to properly retract, I have to hold it upside down. To go back to blocking, I have to go back into sword mode.
But see, that is the fact that it can retract like that so quickly, that is awesome. That is just really clever. So, yeah, it's interesting. It'll really, like, the mass behind the hit is going to impact a lot. This is a very, very soft target. Watermelons.
I think the bigger issue here is actually hitting a human target, right? Maintaining edge alignment. Like, what's the actual? How is the blade going to maintain edge alignment? Just because it has so much mass and it does have a little bit of floppiness. It has a little bit of wiggle. I would say, even with regular swords, maintaining edge alignment can be difficult sometimes, right? So with this, I just think that inherent to its design, it just is not gonna stay on target.
Yeah.
And even when he's hitting like these kind of softer mediums, which watermelon, you can't really get any softer than that. And it's having a bit of trouble with its edge alignment. And I don't necessarily think it's him. I just think it's inherently the design.
When you swing it out wide enough, it looks like it does.
That edge alignment looks good.
Yeah, it falls into kind of the direction you want.
And but the moment you hit with it...
Look how much it bends. It just flops right out. And so all that force gets sucked out of the thing. Whereas if this was a straight, blade, you'd be transferring continual force from your grip.
Yeah.
And so that's just the big challenge with articulated weapons generally.
Gotta go
You'd want to
around
use
a
it with a
second
shield.
time. But I don't know how it is with a flail, but I imagine it's probably somewhat similar.
All right, well, that we can speak on because we have tested flails. Now, you would assume that there's similarity with it, but because the flail head is much shorter than what he's dealing with, you can suck the momentum out of a full-strength flail hit with kind of one slow down yank. And if the chain is shorter than the length of flail, you're pretty safe from that.
Again, that's kind of the inherent design here. We have such a long articulated weapon rather than something that, like Shad mentioned, is when you have the flail, right? You want it to not come up to your hands because you don't want it to hit you in the hands, right? With this sort of design, you obviously don't. You can't do that.
Yeah, and with a flail, I can't believe I'm defending a flail here. You can follow up strike and use that momentum in as
because it's just shorter.
It's shorter, and you can redirect it much easier.
Well, again, the whipsword that we had was shorter,
and
so we could do
that. So the length of whipsword he has
is just very long,
really hard. You could on certain angles redirect the striking, but like a wide slash like that, you have to go with it. You can't really just the
momentum's got to go somewhere.
So because a flail is so much smaller, it is actually much easier to manage as a weapon than this one.
And I think it is very worth noting that with these sorts of articulated weapons, right, ricochet is possible. I mean, it's possible with a flail, right? Mm-hmm. But because this is so long, there is no way to kind of...
Hitting yourself with this weapon is so much more likely than with a flail, which again makes the whole concept even more challenging on top of everything else.
Back to the video. Okay, now if the target is a little bit closer.
Okay, I was interested in that, like how it would go hitting middle of the thing. Messy.
Yeah.
And
it's just interesting to me because the exact same issues that we ran into with my one, which I don't consider my one to be good, right? It was just what I could get done in the time frame I had. Even with his really good one, it's still the same problem.
Look, it literally bundled up right there. And you can't fix that without pausing and unwrapping it. That's another big problem. Yeah. Because the more I watch him kind of testing this, the more it convinces me how inefficient and bad a weapon, a full-on whipsword like this really
And this is against watermelon.
Yes.
Like you could sharpen up.
Imagine a pool noodle. It'll just be caught and tear.
We don't have to imagine, Chad. We've done it.
It's an art piece.
Yeah, that's a problem. I love that he's tested this out. I find value in this as just not only a nerd, but a sword enthusiast and one that likes to look at fantasy and stuff, because this gives me additional information as to how viable this concept is generally, on top of our own tests that we've done.
I wonder, right? Like, what would it be better to just have the top half of the sword be the whip, extend?
Yes.
So then you could still have the strong of the blade.
It would have less chance of hitting you.
Exactly. And if it broke, you would still have half a blade.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think
that's actually not a bad idea.
Because then it's further away from you. Mm-hmm. You might be able to control it a little bit more because you have a lot more mass on the actual handle portion, right? Then if somebody gets close to you, right? Because with a whipsword, you're basically just screwed, right? With that, you still have a bit of structure, half a sword.
What would actually, I think, would work even better than what would it. So look at it. Pretend you have a sword, right? Think of the first top section of the sword like that. Only having that be the end of an articulated chain or rope, and that extending by about half a meter to the meter. That's what I said. Because I was thinking. You were saying have the top portion of the blade have a segmented whip.
Basically exactly this, but half the blade is a normal blade, and then the other half can extend, do what he does.
Well, what I'm saying is don't have segmented blades. Have a single blade section on a rope that extends from the sword.
Like a rope dart sword?
Yeah.
Half of a sword?
Quarter, I'm thinking about that much.
Okay.
If you could get it that would align to the swing as you strike, right? You have more blade section.
I think that would be better. Because then this could still be a regular sword like what he's done. But the problems we run into here is there's just inherent issues with the design, like we said. Mm-hmm. But see how he's got no room here. And this is something I did with mine, to be fair here. But just imagine you had half a sword, just a regular sword, and then the other half has these segmented bits that can go, that can extend and then retract. I feel like that's much more viable.
It is.
It's not going to hit your hand. It's actually easier to control. You can probably even swing it harder and faster because you have more leverage on the thing. I just think overall that might be a far more viable concept than the full blade being articulated.
See, I agree with that. And I actually think my idea of instead of having the segmented portion, just have a blade on a bit of a.
But the reason why the rope doesn't work is because the segments allow you to keep the edge alignment. They also keep structure in the blade itself.
Yeah.
So when you hit something, even if it wraps around, it's not wrapping around like it's not doing a 360 roll. Whereas with a rope, that's the biggest problem.
Let's get rid of the rope and have like a flat, because you can get flat chains that when you stretch it out, they want to align to each other.
Yeah.
Have something like that so it's aligned with the swing of the blade.
But I think the reason why this design works, the segmented specifically, is because if you miss and you hit someone anywhere on the blade, you're going to hit them with a sharp bit.
That's true.
Rather than just
because you could hit them just with a chain and not the blade.
Exactly.
And that would be the flaw.
Yeah.
But overall, like, makes you think, doesn't it? And Nord Artisan, brilliant channel. Check it out. And he's got a second attempt at this, and so if you're interested, we could do a follow-up video looking at his next design. But I really wanted to have a look at his medieval whipsword design, because just in this concept alone, it exposes some really interesting things about this concept of a weapon.
Yeah. I think it's a fantastic attempt, right? The biggest issue, not just for him, like just in general with the concept, is switching between the two modes. Right?
Yes.
That's where you're going to run into so much problems. But if you're able to iron that out, I think that there is enough to make up for like the lack of the whipsword aspect. It's just switching between them two. You need it to be so much quicker.
Yeah, and that's difficult.
Yeah.
That is very difficult. But if you want to actually see us testing out our own whipsword, I've got a video right there. And it performs. You can do things you'll see. Check it out, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.